Welcome to the Grow Your Business and Grow Your Wealth podcast with Gary Heldt. Gary is an expert in helping business owners put together a plan that will provide a better future for their businesses, themselves, and their families. On the podcast, Gary interviews other professionals who share his vision, and together they share secrets and strategies any business owner can use to build a better financial foundation for your business and your life.
Hey, welcome back to the podcast. This week, our guest is Maria Olson, who is a commercial litigation attorney with Pell's Law. Welcome, Maria.
Thank you for having me.
Sure. So, Maria, what got you interested in law and specifically in commercial litigation?
Well, I went straight to law school out of college because I didn't know what I wanted to do. My immigrant mother pressured me to become a doctor or a lawyer. And I figured that becoming a lawyer could only open doors for me, and it has indeed, as both an author, journalist, and also as a public speaker. So it gives you instant credibility in our society. So that's why I pursued law. But now I not only practice law, but I also have other side businesses.
Right. So can you explain what commercial litigation is?
Commercial litigation means, typically, it means anything that is non-criminal in nature. So there are criminal lawyers and civil lawyers. I'm a civil litigation attorney. I focus on commercial matters as opposed to family law or other subgenres of law. But I do handle employment discrimination, administrative law, any tax litigation involving the government, and also negotiating contracts, reviewing documents and contracts for businesses. But civil litigation means basically companies suing each other is the bread and butter of what I do.
So when they're suing each other, typically, what are they suing each other over?
Breaches of contract.
Okay. Kind of as a layperson, when you're saying that it's okay, I've agreed to do X, Y, and Z for you, and I haven't necessarily fulfilled that, so you're suing me. Now, what are you suing me for?
Well, it depends on what the client wants. Some people want something that's called specific performance, which means having the court order the other party to fulfill their duties under the contract. Some people want monetary damages. Typically, when you sue someone, you have to be able to prove damages in some way. So it's pretty clear cut in a personal injury suit. You get hit by a car, you can sue for the damage to your car, for your medical costs and loss of job income, if that's part of your damages, and sometimes even for pain and suffering. But in a typical civil litigation matter between two companies, it's what money you lost as a result of the other party's failure to fulfill their obligations under the contract. Occasionally, there are things that are more nebulous that we sue upon, like breach of fiduciary duty. An officer of a company is supposed to be looking out for the best interests of the company. And let's say they do something that's against the best interests of the company. Or let's say there is someone, a disgruntled former employee who started a new business to compete with you. If they had a non-compete clause in their employment contract, or if you can prove some other wrongdoing, sometimes you can bring suits on theories such as tortious interference with contract, or other theories that are wholly dependent usually on state law. State law governs most of these issues, and most companies in their agreements say what state law applies if there is any disagreement. Also, many contracts today have arbitration clauses because people perceive arbitration as being less costly. Arbitration is by typically an expert in the field, acts as a quasi-judicial figure who will evaluate the strength of the case and with an aim to get you to settle before you spend a lot of money on litigation, because going to court is very expensive and
Right.
it takes an emotional toll as well.
So now we're talking about, somebody not fulfilling a contract. What happens with companies that typically do work and they don't have a contract? We see
Well,
that
yeah,
lots of times with small businesses.
mhm.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, well, I would counsel all of your listeners to put it in writing. You leave yourself very vulnerable if you don't put something in writing, because then it's just two people's words against each other. And some oral contracts are not enforceable. Like if it is for the sale of real estate, not enforceable unless it's in writing. If it's something that can't be completed within a year, I believe, under the statute of frauds, then that would be not enforceable. So you really want to put things in writing to protect yourself. And if it's really important, get an attorney to review the contract first, because a lot of my cases hinge on contract interpretation. So the words you use in your contract are very important. Like any qualifiers, like the word all, and, or all of those things can make or break a case. So you really want to protect yourself by putting as much as you can of your agreement in the contract. Money changes people. Even in families, we've seen family members sue each other in family-owned businesses. Money can corrupt people. So you don't know what's going to happen 10 years down the line. You just don't know. So it's better to put it all out in front. Like, I also have not been a fan typically of prenuptial agreements, and I did not enter into one when I got married, but now I see the utility of it, because 50% of marriages in this country end in divorce. And why spend money fighting over who gets what? If you have a prenuptial agreement, you know what you're getting, and you don't have to go to court. You just simply turn over whatever it is you're supposed to turn over, and you walk away. And sometimes that saves a lot of heartache. It certainly saves time and money in the long run to put anything of importance in writing.
So it's not, it's not just important for me as I'm providing you the service to put something in a contract. It's for you also as the consumer on the other side, because then you're able to go back and say, hey, you said you were going to do X, Y, and Z per this contract.
Right. I mean, I have my own podcast called Becoming Your Best Version. This is the first time I've met you to be on your podcast. Now that I'm thinking about it, we should have a contract. We should have an agreement. Like, what's to say that you won't sell this broadcast to some continuing legal education group? Like, I don't think you will, but
Right.
you could. And
Right.
then I wouldn't get any proceeds from it because I didn't enter into a contract with you over the use of this recording. You can do whatever you want with it because we have no agreement.
Right.
So you want to protect yourself primarily from unscrupulous people in the marketplace, and there are plenty. I mean, anyone who watches the news can see that not everybody has your best interests at heart. So better to save yourself some grief by getting it in writing.
Right. Now, so what are some of the besides not going to an attorney like you to at the beginning, what are some other common mistakes that you're seeing people make that are making these situations go into arbitration or go into court?
Okay. Well, a lot of people who have contracts don't read the contracts. They don't see that they're signing away a lot of their rights. And people who are presented with form contracts sometimes think they have to sign it. They think it's all or nothing. That is not true. If you receive a contract and you see something in it that you don't want to sign, rather than gut the whole thing, one thing you can do is cross out what you don't want and put your initials next to it. That in most places, I can't think of a single exception right at the moment, that has the force of deleting it from the contract. You should also keep a copy of your contracts on hand. And you can keep them online. Electronic signatures carry the force of law, at least in Maryland, which is where I primarily practice. Then, so carefully review what you're signing before you sign it. Get things in writing. Try to think of the ramifications of what you're entering into. Think about, okay, if I take this opportunity, does it foreclose me taking another opportunity? Because let's say I got an offer to put on this same presentation for $5,000 in front of the American Bar Association. And then they ask me, well, have you ever spoken on this topic before? And I can say, oh yeah, I just did a podcast on this last week. They may say, oh, sorry, we don't really want that then. If it's already available out there for free, why would we pay you for this? So try to think of the ramifications of the businesses and the agreements you enter into. And sometimes it helps to have an accountability partner or an advisor, unofficial or official advisor out there, or a mentor. Mentorship is free. I would really recommend that everyone seek out mentors for various aspects of their business and even personal lives. You can find mentors within your own organization, within your sister organizations, within associations in general, or even online, Facebook groups. If there's someone who posts a lot of things that resonate with you or whose expertise you really value, you might reach out to them and say, hey, would you have coffee with me, or even have a Zoom chat with me, and pick their brain about a certain issue, or ask them if they would be willing to mentor you for a couple of months while you get X off the ground, like that. Most people have been at the starting line before and are willing to lend a helping hand to somebody else at the beginning. So it doesn't cost you anything to ask, and the payoff could be substantial.
A couple minutes ago, you talked about, somebody giving you a contract and you not agreeing with it and crossing it out. In our world now, everything's DIY. And lots of times you can find different contracts and stuff online. And matter of fact, I've seen people just take them, use them, and it's not for their state or anything else. Can you talk about that a little bit for us?
Sure. I think that there are many very good contracts online that are free. But what you need to do is check first to see if there's an online contract from your state, because almost every contract is going to be governed by state law unless it's with a federal agency. So it's best to start with a contract that is governed by the laws of the state where your business is located. Then, if you can't find anything like that, take the contract, whatever form contract you find, look up state law with regard to the important provisions in the contract, and then maybe get a lawyer who practices in the state where you do business to look at the contract first. But some state agencies even have form contracts that they recommend businesses use. And if you're lucky enough to find something that meets your requirements, use that. Like, don't take the other party's contract. Take what's in the statute, or in the court's forms, or in the Secretary of State for your state's library of forms. That's a really good way to get free documentation that has been vetted by someone within the state and will hold up in state court.
Would you still recommend having your own attorney review that type of document still, even though you found it there at the state and it's for your state and everything else? Do you still recommend having your attorney review?
It depends what it is. If it's something really simple, I don't think you need a lawyer to review it. But if you want to be super careful, I would get a lawyer to review it. And even though suing your lawyer is a terrible way to go, I mean, that's one more level of protection.
Right.
If I give you patently wrong information, you have the right to sue me. And most successful law firms have deep pockets, but that's a really tough way to go. And it's hard to prove negligence, but it's one more level of safety for the business owner.
Right. So, Maria, obviously you do other things besides the litigation and law. You're an author. You've done children's books and adults books. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Oh, yeah, sure. Well, I wrote a really successful book called 50 After 50, Reframing the Next Chapter of Your Life. Here it is.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's available in many libraries because Library Journal gave it a great review. But it describes how I blew up my life at age 50 and then how I rebuilt it by, in my 50th year, trying 50 new things to determine how I wanted to live the next chapter of my life. And this book has helped many people get unstuck. And I also did a TEDx talk about it. And I've written 5 other books, and I have another book coming out in early next year about consumer DNA testing, the legal ramifications of it, and also a practical guide for how to navigate that fraught terrain. I also have a book marketing business where I help authors market their books.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a podcast in which I interview inspiring women and share their stories about how they up-leveled their lives. And I'm a mentor to women in recovery from alcoholism and a journalist. I have written for the Washington Post, Parenting Magazine, and I contribute regularly to some AARP publications and other online magazines. So I am the type of person who likes to be busy and doing lots of different things and giving back in a lot of different ways. So I do 5 or 6 different things every day.
Right. Now, what about your radio show?
Well, I was a co-host of the only LGBT radio show in Washington, D.C. My son is gay. He's actually famous. He's got 11 million followers on TikTok, and he was voted People Magazine's Sexiest Man Alive for 2020.
That's awesome.
And is being honored at the Kennedy Center this month for his work in mental health. Anyway, I was one of the co-hosts of that radio show for a decade. I recently stepped away from the radio show work to pursue my other interests, but I may go back to radio someday. Right now, I have a weekly podcast, which is really helpful, and I'm applying to do more TEDx talks. So my next book is about DNA tests. I found out at age 53 that the father who raised me is not my biological father. And I spent a year looking for him and found out that he's an actor who I've watched on the big and small screens all my life. So it's been a crazy few years of meeting my new family and talking about it both online and in print. And I want to help other people because I was totally blindsided by this discovery.
That's because you said you've kind of reinvented yourself since you've turned 50, and dealing with a lot of this, and a lot of it's public, because of your podcast and your books and radio and with your son.
Yes.
So that's incredible that you're able to do that and keep going forward with things, because lots of times that kind of thing would knock people down.
Yeah.
When you're helping mentor the people, what do you pull from it inside yourself to be able to do that? Because lots of times when you're helping people like that, it seems like there's always problems and you're always fixing problems.
Yeah. Well, I am a member of AA and Al-Anon, and the 12th step in both programs is to pay it forward. When I'm helping another person, it's reinforcing within me the lessons that I learned and want to continue to practice. So I find it actually contributing to my healing to help another person. And it also contributes to my self-esteem to do esteemable acts. So when I'm helping a young associate in my law firm or mentoring a woman who's struggling with alcoholism or with boyfriend or husband who is an alcoholic, it makes me stronger to help make them stronger. So I believe it's a win-win situation for me to give back in that way, in the many ways that I give back. And as a mentor in book marketing, I am helping people birth their book babies. Most people are really invested in their book. When they're putting all that effort into bringing something to life, it's kind of an emotional undertaking. So I try to help make it easier and pay it forward in terms of what I learned so that they don't have to start from scratch. And so I do that both formally and informally. And being a lawyer in some ways can become like being a therapist. Like people tell me their problems. And especially if I'm in a sexual harassment case or an employment discrimination case, I have to be ready to listen, and I have to be an active listener, and I have to be able to parse through everything they're telling me to take what is legally actionable and what may make a difference in their case or in settlement negotiations. So I have to be a really good listener. And almost everything I do not only benefits me, but it benefits the other person because of the ways I've chosen to use my creativity and my gifts.
Right. That's awesome.
Thanks.
So, Maria, what have I not asked you wish I had?
Well, I could use more likes on my TEDx talk, which is called Turning Life's Challenges into a Force for Good. I did this TEDx talk at City University of New York, and it really resonated with people. All of us have difficulties in our lives, and I wanted to share some of the ways that I moved forward out of great difficulties in midlife for me. And my book, although it's called 50 After 50, it resonates with people of all ages. My daughter's friends in their 20s say, oh my gosh, this really helped me. I was feeling stuck, my quarter life crisis. And people give it out as gifts. So I would encourage your listeners to look both at marialeonardolson.com, my name.com, for links to all my social media, my books, my public speaking, my TEDx talk, and also pelslaw.com, PELSLAW, which there's a link on my personal website too, which is my law firm in the Washington, D.C. area. We practice law in D.C., Maryland, and Virginia, and we do all kinds of law there. We have people who do criminal law and divorce and everything. I just personally do civil litigation and employment discrimination and tax litigation. So anyway, we're all general practitioners, and we become instant experts in whatever the subject matter is for our clients, because that's what litigators are called to do, is to become experts in a given field so that they can be conversant with the facts, with how the law applies to the facts, and can represent their clients effectively. So I went to a top 10 law school, practiced in one of the biggest law firms in DC, and I was a political appointee at the Justice Department in the Clinton administration. So I like to think I look younger than I am because I'm 60, but so I've had a lot of experience, and I think I can be of service to many of your listeners if they have a legal issue that they would like to discuss.
Great. Give us your personal website one more time.
MariaLeonardOlson.com.
All right, everybody. And that's where you can find out more about Maria with her TED Talks, her books, her podcast, and her upcoming events that she has going on.
Thank you.
Maria, thank you very much for your time today and your wisdom.
Oh, thank you so much.
Everybody, this week our guest was Maria Olson, who is a commercial litigation attorney with Pell's Law, an author, a podcaster, a TED Talk specialist. We really appreciate it. We'll see you guys next week.
Thank you.
49 faces looked to him in triumph. Over the last 12 months, they had each taken turns and promoted his business for a week at a time, driving over $987,342 in revenue. What if you had a network of 50 centers of influence who promoted your business every week for a year? Grab your copy of the #1 Amazon best-selling book, The Ultimate Guide to Growing Your Business with a Podcast, at 33% off the Amazon price by going to ultimatepodcastbook.com. Again, that website for 33% off the Amazon price is ultimatepodcastbook.com.